Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. I appreciate you being here and spending a little bit of time with us this morning. I know it's a little bit of a cloudy day, but we could definitely use more rain. So I'm hopeful that we are going to be getting a little bit more today, if it's at all possible. So today we are going to be talking about recruitment. I'm not quite sure why my screen is locked on this screen. That's lots of fun. I love technology. There we go. So, but just to go over the agenda really quick, welcome. We're going to do a little bit introduction to Mentor Minnesota if you're new to joining us. Go over a really brief overview of the EEP, that's the elements of best practice that, or effective practice, I should say, excuse me, that Mentor Minnesota and Mentor National uses. We're strong believers in research and evidence-based practices, so we'll go over that really, really briefly. And then I want to introduce you to our amazing participants. We are joined by two amazing organizations, both BestPrep and the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth today. So I'm just super excited to stop talking and to let them go ahead and share what they do with their organizations. And then a little bit of time at the end for some questions and answers. So with that, I invite you to, in the chat, if you would say your name and pronouns and the program or organization that you're here with. And then just to get to know you a little bit and to connect you with each other, I have a question for you. If you could recruit one Olympic athlete to be a mentor or volunteer for your organization, who would it be and why? We're going to go ahead and share two in the chat as well. So with that, I'm Emily Garai. I'm the program director. I'm fairly new to Mentor Minnesota's family. This, I believe, is my 5th month. And just excited to be here. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm joined by our amazing program coordinator, Vista, Allie, today. So Allie, if you wanna introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Allie, she, her. I'm the program coordinator, Vista. Should I answer the question maybe?
Sure, if you'd like to.
I think I would go, the Olympic athlete I would want to have as a mentor might be Simone Biles, just because she's pretty cool and like a really great advocate for mental health and stuff. So I think she'd be cool. And you can pass it over to Sarah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Schaefer. She, her, I'm the executive director at Mentor Minnesota. And I love Simone Biles, but I think I would want to recruit Dalila Muhammad because she mentored her her teammate in the, I think it was the 400-meter hurdles. And I just thought it was a really beautiful relationship together. So that would be my choice. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Allie. And I'll share, I was going to share it in the chat, but I'll share it out loud too. But I would probably pick Carissa Moore. She's a surfer and she's an Indigenous athlete. I grew up on the White Earth Indian Reservation. So I think really supporting and elevating Indigenous youth is important too. And I would love to have a young leader represent and be part of our organization. I think that would be pretty awesome. Plus I wouldn't mind getting maybe a surfer lesson or two, but go ahead and keep sharing in the chat. I'd love to hear who you would recruit. And so we'd also love to share a little bit about Mentor Minnesota. So since 1994, Mentor Minnesota has been the convening leader for youth organizations, excuse me, oh my goodness, I need more coffee this morning, mentoring organizations in Minnesota. We have over 200 programs in the network supporting best practice in youth development. We help support them through free technical assistance, training, leadership, convening, and advocacy. And if you hear us say that, you know, convening a lot, what does that exactly mean? And it's just that we want to connect and support the field of mentoring as best we can. And so even in events such as this, we're trying to pull people together and connect and really advocate for youth mentoring programs all over the state. Today, because we're rocking recruitment, I wanted just to mention really briefly before I kick it over to our amazing participants, a little bit of the elements of effective practice. This, if I had mine here with me, you would see how beat up it is. That's a good thing. But within the elements of effective practice for mentoring, they talk and really set some benchmarks and enhancements for programs. And so their recruitment, the benchmark, really the number one is that as programs that we engage in recruitment strategies that realistically portray the benefits, practices, supports, and the challenges as well of mentoring programs. And I know that both of the organizations that are here with us today are going to talk a little bit about their practices and what they have in place for how they go about recruiting folks to their organizations. Like I said, we're so excited to have two organizations with us. The first one is the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth, a little bit of their mission statement. If you've not been connected with the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth yet, they assure the success for all youth by challenging the conditions that diminish their hope by assuring that all youth are connected to a trusting adult who is vested in their healthy development as measured by educational success and mastery of life skills. And representing the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth, we have the amazing Julie Richards. She's the Youth and Community Engagement Initiative Coordinator, along with Andrew Mua, the Youth Engagement AmeriCorps Vista. And I know Andrew's joining us via car, so I appreciate him multitasking and still making the effort to be with us today. After the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth, we'll have BestPrep. BestPrep is another amazing organization that prepares students with business, career, and financial literacy skills through hands-on experiences that inspire success in work and life. And representing BestPrep, we have Janae Olinger. She's the Director of Volunteer Engagement at Minnesota Business Venture. And Janae joined BestPrep, and she has a plethora of experience through the University of Minnesota Extension, the U of M Foundation, and other things. But with that, I'm going to kick it over to Julie Richards and Andrew to get us started.
Hi, thank you. And I do just want to make a correction. Andrew is now joining us as a full-time staff member. We had him.
Sorry, Andrew.
He and I started about the same time. 2 summers ago, I started just ahead of him. And he began with, I think, Reading Corps. And then he moved into Public Allies last year, which is another type of AmeriCorps or Vista type of thing that's really great. And we are having a hard time letting him go because he's amazing. And so he'll be joining our team this year. So we'll get him for 1 more year. But yeah, so we're the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth. I did not prepare a slideshow, but what I wanted to do, if it's okay to share my screen, is take you through a little bit of our webpage to explain what we do. Because I've never worked for an organization like this before, and people aren't always clear, because we don't run any youth programs, but we have youth who engage with us. And so is it okay if I share my screen? I think I need it to be enabled. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm just going to take you through a couple of pieces on our webpage, and then I'll lay out our recruitment strategies. And Andrew, feel free to jump in and add content to whatever I'm saying. I know you're driving. But if I miss some things, please jump in there. All right.
Are you able to do it yet? Otherwise,
I
I'm
am.
with Sarah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, nope, I totally am. All right, and can you all see that? Is everyone able to see?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is our landing page when you first come on here. This was our very first year. This was a BYC meeting that we have, and BYC is our Brooklyn Youth Council. Again, this isn't a youth program. This is one of our teams that helps us make the decisions that we do. And so basically, the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth is a joint powers organization. And these are some of our joint powers groups. What this means is that we were created by a joint powers agreement. We have 9 program partners, and that's who sits on our board and also counsels our leadership. And so even though the city of Brooklyn Park is our fiscal agent, they don't have any more say than any of our community partners. And so our community partners include the 4 area school districts that serve people living in both Brooklyns. So that would be Anoka, Hennepin, Osseo, Robbinsdale, and Brooklyn Center. And then both cities, so the city of Brooklyn Park and the city of Brooklyn Center, Hennepin County, and then the 2 community colleges, so Hennepin Technical College and North Hennepin Community College. For all of those organizations, we function sort of like a think tank, thought partner. We do all the things that end in the word 8. So like we evaluate, we create, we collaborate, we coordinate. We do all things with these organizations. We innovate to make sure that young people and their families have positive experiences, equal access, and opportunities to all the things that young people need to thrive in the Brooklyns. So for example, the cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis have Right Track and Step Up. We worked with both city partners, Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center, and community members to create Brooklink. And so we created that. It was housed in our organization for a couple of years while we evaluated and tweaked it. And then we handed it back over to the cities. Because again, we don't want to run programming. We want to help our program partners streamline the programs, opportunities, and events that they have. So that's a quick look at who we are. In terms of what we do, you can see here by this dropdown, coordinate, access, quality, youth engagement. We recently worked with both community colleges to do a deep study into persistence. Many students don't make it past the first year or semester of school, and it's really a lot more expensive for students to have it's a lot more expensive for the community colleges to have students drop out. And we know that it's not healthy for the students either. And so we did almost a year-long study that included surveys and one-on-one interviews and all kinds of things to learn what keeps students from persisting. And that has translated into structural changes and some policy changes in at least in Hennepin Technical College, and they're already seeing their persistence rates increase by 3%. And I want to point out that's over the pandemic, they saw their persistence rates increase, and 3% is a huge amount. And so we do a variety of things there. We started Health on the Go, which we have a big health trailer, like a mini house on a trailer hitch that travels around both cities and goes to different events. It goes to culturally specific events because we have culturally specific public policy or public health workers who will go out and share information with the community, offer COVID testing, all kinds of things, mental health support. That's one of our initiatives. And we modeled that after our Rec on the Go, which brings recreation opportunities to housing communities, because we know that one barrier for participation for young people is it is transportation. And so rather than have kids have to come to the activity, we created a system that's now embedded in both cities where the activities go to where the kids are. One of the more important things that we do here is we have every other summer. So we didn't have it this summer, we'll have it again next summer. We do a youth to youth survey where we hire several Brooklink interns and they complete a really in-depth survey with community members, enough so that it's a valid sample set. And from that information, we get a pulse on what is happening for youth and families. And so then we use that information to inform our strategic plan and our work plan for the year. So for example, it was the 2018 survey in which we discovered that young people really want access to try all these things, but they need transportation. So from that came Rec on the Go. Last summer, the 2020 survey, we changed the questions and found out how young people were faring both in the time of COVID. Last summer, we were obviously much more in lockdown still. And also we were feeling the effects of George Floyd. And our young people were really living at the center of that. And so last year's report has really informed us about mental health and connectedness and senses of belonging in young people. And so that has really informed our work for this year. This picture right over here is, we took some of our young people with us to a conference in Denver, and this young woman her name's Tiffany, and she's just a rock star. She's going into college this year. I just have to give her a little shout out. And so if you check out our website, all of these things are different links that you can go to. They're part of data we've either initiated or we've been a part of, different projects. And so you can find out a lot more about us here. So I'm going to stop sharing for us. Right. So in terms of our organization, like I said, there's 3 of us full-time, or there's going to be 4 of us full-time. And then we often have interns that come through. We also have some former BYC members, alumni that still contract with, we hire them as consultants to do different things too. So at any given time, there's at least 4, probably closer to 7 of us working together.
Julie, did you already go into the BYC?
Nope, I was just about to get there. Did you want to do that?
No, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So each of us manages different teams. For example, our supervisor, our executive director, Becca, has the executive leadership and the strategic leadership team. We all have different teams that we manage. I manage the community engagement team. And then Andrew and I co-lead the Brooklyn Youth Council. This is a group of young people who either live, work, or go to school in the Brooklands. They're typically high school age. We do pretty heavy recruiting in August, and we do that through the open houses and the back to school nights. But we also put the word out to all our program partners so that they are letting young people know that we have this opportunity for them. Our best recruitment strategy is honestly word of mouth and siblings. I mentioned Tiffany earlier. She has a younger sister who would have been eligible last year to be on BYC, but apparently there can only be 1 girl from that family on at a time. They had decided that at home. And so now that Tiffany's graduated, we're getting her younger sister, and we're thrilled because she's just like equally as amazing. We also have some other sibling combos in our group. And we encourage, when we're recruiting, bring your friends, because what we've learned is that we could have 25 people to start with, but that really is going to look like about 12 to 15 in terms of consistency throughout the year. So we know we lose about 1/3. So we always want to over recruit, knowing that that we will lose about 1/3 of our participants. The BYC is our youth team. And so again, it's not a program, but they do attend our quarterly board meetings, and they also get together weekly and determine what kind of project they want to work on. And that project is both something they're interested in, but it's also in response to the youth survey and the data that we gather every other summer. And so in the past, this past year, the youth did not complete a project, but also we were solely online this year. And this was a year that we also were trying to create a short-term strategic plan. And so our young people are very involved in that process as well. So we just honestly did not have time to get to it. And it seemed when my boss and I went back through our calendar, pretty much every other week, something major was happening in the Brooklands between the trials and the pandemic, and was school gonna be virtual or not, and our strategic planning and our board things. And then Dante, like just everything was something. So we stayed connected. We were not necessarily productive, but we were absolutely focused on our young people's mental health this year. So we're not feeling like we lost. But in the past, the summer before then, our young people put together a young adult fair, which was supposed to be in person, but then we went to lockdown. And so we did it virtually, and we had over 50 young people attend a week-long summit. Our young people have also written curriculum that's used in Brooklyn Center community schools in their 21st century programming. They put together a 200-person event a few years before that. I can't remember what the focus was. That was before me. But every year they do have a project that they choose. So in the past, our BYCers have always met on Monday nights in either Brooklyn Park or Brooklyn Center City Hall. This year coming up, in order to help with retention, we're going to have we're going to meet in the students' schools. And so there's about 5 schools that we'll need to get to, and we'll get to them every other week. So the students will have 2 meetings a month in their schools, either during advisory or during lunch. which we think will help have more robust both recruitment and retention. And then we'll meet one day a month all together, probably at one of the city halls or at one of the rec centers, like at one of the rec centers in Brooklyn. We're thinking that this will help eliminate some of the challenges that happen in the winter and throughout the year when kids have activities after school. Like we have a lot of wrestlers, we've got some basketball players, we have, kids in drama. And so then in the winter, they're less likely to come to our meetings because they're at the same time, and the coaches don't really want them to miss. So we're going to think about meeting during the day and then just have that one meeting a month. This past year was the first year that we've paid our young people, and we will likely not continue that next year, but what we will do is we'll pay them for the time we spend training them. All of our youth council members are trained in YFL, which is the youth version of the TOPS facilitation training, which I always recommend to people. That's probably one of the best professional development trainings I've been to. So we train all our young people in the art of the focused conversation and consensus building workshops. And then we're going to end the trainings Andrew is attending today, I think, revolve around restorative practices and restoration. Andrew, is that correct? Okay, perfect. So we'll be training our young people in that too. We'll also teach them about power mapping and some other skills that we think that they need, some things around deep cultural identity and systemic oppression. We train them in all those things. So we'll pay them for their training time this year. And then we often, our organization is often asked to facilitate things like strategic planning, deep research dives, and we invite our young people who have been trained in these methods to facilitate alongside us, and then we pay them for that too. We also get a variety of other asks of our young people, often that come with money, so then they're prepared for those things as well. So that's our youth council. This year, we have also expanded into more youth engagement. And so I told you about our 9 program partners. We're also beginning to think about youth as a program partner, because youth are attached to these institutions, but it's the adults who make the decisions about what that looks like. And so we're also trying to figure out, so how do we have youth represented without an institution representing them? So we're beginning to think about that. And so we have an initiative that I'm piloting called Youth on Board, where again, we'll train a number of youth, and then we have a number of leadership, we're calling them decision-making tables. So think about the different commissions and boards that exist within the city structure, also within the school district. We have a couple of nonprofits that are also interested in us. And so those are all spaces where we know that the decisions will be more sustainable and more youth-centered as opposed to youth-focused when young people are also at those tables. And the long game with that is that when you solve for the most disenfranchised, everybody else then also has more access. It's like how we built the ramps on sidewalks for people in wheelchairs. But I'm a mom, and I'm a rollerblader, or I was, and let me tell you, those ramps make it easier for me too, right? So that's the Youth on Board initiative. And so we are recruiting for that as well. And then Andrew has his project that he's the lead on is really youth organizing, and so we're recruiting for that. So we are in the process this year of building out more of a youth engagement wing so that youth also act as a program partner. And so when we are recruiting young people, we're recruiting them to us as a whole, and then we're sharing with them, so here's all the ways you can engage. You could engage on BYC, you could engage with Youth on Boards, you could engage with youth organizing, and many of the trainings will be the same. You might do all 3, you might do 1. But once you're connected to the Alliance, you're also connected to Brooklyn. And so all the other internships and job potential also pop up for you. So we also believe that collaboration is really important for recruitment. We want strong collaborators who are also youth-centered, so that when we have our young people, they're connected to more than just us, and they can really find their niche in terms of what they're interested in. And we believe in compensating whenever possible. And sometimes we push for when it's not to make it possible. Andrew, would you add anything else to that? I know you're driving.
I think you got it. be pretty specifically for everything. I think you got it.
Okay. So that is our strategy. And I will say our strategy is not necessarily written down on paper anymore. But we know that like we have great relationships with the right people among our program partners. And our youth tend to have really positive experiences with us. And so that word of mouth and spreading the word is helpful. But we are also in the process of really stepping up our social media game. One of our BYC alumni is helping with that, because that is marketing is not my jam. This is like not what I'm good at, and definitely not social media, but we have help for that. We know who to hire to help us with that.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you, Julie, and Andrew too. Just powerful stuff. And I love even the language that you're using, that you're, collaboration and not just having it youth focused, but youth centered. Those what seem like small things, are really powerful, and compensation for young people as well. Wanting them to feel valued and that their voice and opinion and ideas all matter. I think that's really huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like for youth on boards, for example, the tables that are interested, they have to fill out like a readiness inventory, and then we'll have a one-on-one conversation based off of that. And then those tables will have to undergo some training. It is, so they'll do some power mapping so that we can like understand the power that youth come with as well. And there'll be some things around deep culture, both as individuals, but as like, what's the culture of this table? And then there'll be support around that change process, because we're looking at, like, if we're thinking about commissions and boards, in the Brooklyns, some of the commissions tend to be largely white, largely male. There's not a term on some of them. So some people have been in them for like 30 years, which is insane to me. And so it really will be a power shift. And so we're going to have those conversations about what is it like to share power? What is it like to have conversations and to stick through them? So those are the ones I'm anticipating. And then we'll also train for other things as they arise too. But there'll just be a lot of support around the change process as it relates to shifting oppressive systemic thinking.
Exactly. No, spot on. So thank you, Julie and Andrew too. I know that there's a few questions, but if it's okay with everyone, I think I'll bounce it over to Janae just to give BestPrep enough time, and then we'll end with question and answer and give some opportunity for feedback and comments and such. So with that, I'll hand it over to Janae.
Hello, everyone. I am going to share my screen here quick. And can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that? Seen that? Okay, amazing. Hi, thank you. And thank you, Julie and Andrew. That was really awesome to hear. I was like furiously taking notes because we are currently trying to think through a youth board at BestPrep and what that looks like and how it will help and what we would ask of our students. And so thank you for talking about it, because it made me go, oh, I have another person I can now go to see what's working. And I appreciate that so much. I am going to talk a little bit about volunteer recruiting first, and then I'm going to go a little bit into students, and I'm going to try to keep this a little bit more generic, but first I do have to give a pitch for BestPrep. So BestPrep's mission is to prepare students with business, career, and financial literacy skills through hands-on experiences that inspire success in work and life. And thank you, Emily, for giving that a little bit earlier. Our big things that we think about, and this helps in my world for recruiting because I can say like quickly what we're going after is business, career, and financial literacy skills. So we're kind of constantly hitting those three. We're thinking about it in relation to, what could we be as in addition to programming that's already happening in schools. So I like to think of us as an add-on to curriculum versus like doing the same thing that the students might be getting within the schools. And we have 7 programs. to our speaking programs. One is the stock market game, to our summer programs, one for students and one for teachers. And then we have 2 mentoring programs. Our mentoring programs are called eMentors and Cloud Coach. Last year, we had about 4,300 students who were in our eMentors program and about 1,700 students who were in our Cloud Coach program. So that's kind of just so you kind of know our range. We're only in the state of Minnesota, but we are in the entire state. We actually physically are in Brooklyn Park, so it's really awesome that Julia is here because we're also in one of the Brooklyns, but we work throughout the state. Okay, I like to kind of come back a little bit to basics, and I recently did this. I guess I say recently, it was in the winter, but with our staff, and just was trying to give our staff a little bit of a reminder of why people actually like to volunteer. Right now, especially, I feel like we have a huge range of what time is possible for people. Some people are just so overwhelmed that if they maybe volunteered before and now, they don't have daycare or they don't have as many things for their kids to be doing, or they just are overwhelmed in their work. Maybe they're stepping back from volunteering. And then we have all of these other people who are like, wait, a lot of things stopped, so now I have more time, and they're kind of coming at us going, do you have virtual opportunities? Can we come at you? Can we do something more? And that's what's really been interesting within BestPrep. We have a lot of programs where we've lost volunteer engagement, where we've lost educator engagement, because just the pandemic was wild, right? And then our mentoring programs, both of our mentoring programs, they're the only 2 programs of all 7 of BestPreps that hit their numbers for this year. So it became very, very clear that teachers wanted these mentorships and students were willing to do them. And then we had plenty of volunteers who were willing to come in and be volunteers. To be fair, our mentoring programs are they're high impact, but low time commitment. We do one-on-one mentoring through email once a week for 8 weeks. And then we have a connection point, which will either be, when we're in person, we physically bring students to the work site, but since we haven't been in person, we've been thinking, how do we get them to understand who their mentor is, to have some form of relationship connection? So that could have been through a Flipgrid video, that could have been through a career panel, something along those lines. And then we had something where it was a connection point on the company so that students also understood what the company was. eMentors and Cloud Coach both are one-on-one mentorships where a student from a class of students, so a whole teacher's class, connects with one person from an organization. So thinking about why people volunteer, we think a lot about they have a personal connection to the organization. So for example, I was on a walk last summer with someone from the United Health Group who was like, yeah, I really would like to do something more. And I was like, we work at UHG with eMentors a lot, so maybe you should get on an eMentors connection. And so it's a lot of that. It could be truly just our staff going, who's in our networks? How can we get those people to want to volunteer with us? They could be looking to build their own skill set, and that could be simply something like they want to present more, they want to be able to be a mentor, they want to be able to understand what the youth of today are into. Or it could be a resume builder. They're wanting to say that they're more involved in the community. Could be something along those lines. They want networking opportunities. Within our BestPrep mentorships, we think a lot about when we bring people together, how can we make sure that it's not just a student meeting with their mentor? Although we love that, is there another bigger thing we can do, which is why we think about the company. How can they learn more about the company in Minnesota that exists and what jobs are at that company? So we're thinking a lot about how do we get students to understand all of the jobs that are out there. I think that's a really big thing for BestPrep. We're very interested in letting students know that it's not just there are not just the 17 jobs that they're thinking about. There are hundreds of jobs, and if you've never heard of them, or if they have seen a building downtown, for example, they've seen Ecolab, but they have no idea what people at Ecolab do. How can we get them to a space where they understand what that organization does? And then mission alignment. So thinking about how they can help others, help their community, or find purpose. And this is kind of where a lot of mentors, I think, fall in. They're kind of going, I really want to just like connect with someone and let them know that they might not know exactly what they want to do today for the rest of their future, and neither did I. And so that's kind of one of the places that we like to talk about, is how can we help students understand that there are a lot of paths and they don't have to have it all figured out right now, and that's okay. The goal is figure out, you know, maybe some skill sets you really like or a passion of yours, and how can we turn that into something that you want to do in your future. Okay, so then I'm going to go a little bit to youth recruitment. We admittedly for our mentoring programs don't do a ton of youth recruitment because we really recruit through teachers. We recruit through educators. But we do like to talk about how it will be helpful for the youth. And that is usually will aid in a future goal. We also really like thinking about having another adult in their life who is just asking them specific questions, like a caring adult who is interested in them, is interested in what they might be interested in, or is interested in giving, I will admit, like like advice in the way that we like to give advice. So for example, we don't want a mentor to be like, you shouldn't do that, you should do this. We want a mentor to kind of ask guiding questions, right? And leading questions so that the student can kind of figure out what is best for them. We want it to be fun. We always have a lot of great moments when a mentor and student realize like they're watching the same TV show, or they like the same music, or they might go to the same concert, or whatever it might be. I think that's when the mentorships really start clicking, is when the students are not as worried about this being like an adult who has nothing in common with them, but there's some form of connection point. And then again, networking opportunities. So thinking about how can this student understand more about their future, and how can they ask questions about what they might want to do in the future. And then I'm not going to fully go through this, but I did make our staff recently do an elevator pitch, and I just wanted to throw it out there because I think it's important for people to have another reminder that as our staff who is not a person who's recruiting can practice an elevator pitch, it always makes it easier for them to eventually, if they're connecting with someone, know what to say. So I like to break it down in this way, that you're explaining what your organization or program does, you're identifying what makes it unique, you're backing it up with numbers, you're asking an engaging question at the end, and then that can give you a little bit of time. I think in this virtual environment, at least in my experience, even if I can get a volunteer on the phone or get them in a video call, I have not nearly as much time as I would have if I might be like standing in front of them and really engaging in conversation. I ask for 30 minutes. I usually am given about 15 or less. And so if I can like get them in really quickly, then I know that I will be able to have them as a volunteer for BestPrep for a while. So I think that's a big thing. And I think the other big thing that I wanted to talk about is how we're getting into places. So I think one of our, I mean, to be fair, BestPrep is a 45-year-old organization. We have a huge board. We have I think it's 54-person board right now. So we have a lot of stake within the community, which is amazing and so nice. I think our challenge right now is not necessarily getting into organizations, because we've been able to get into them. We have advocates in different organizations. We could do informational interviews if we wanted, because we would have people we could reach out to. I think our challenge is getting into organizations that push us a little bit further. We are right now working within our e-mentors program to push back on companies and say, okay, if you're asking for students who are on the free reduced price lunch program, or students who have a specific percentage of non-white students, or whatever it might be, we're kind of pushing back and going, we need volunteers who look like our students then. So we're really trying to figure out how we can do that push and pull within Minnesota, within the corporate community. That's our biggest challenge right now. That's the thing that we're working on in a really big way. I think there's a lot of other things I could say, but I want to give us time to be able to connect. So the final thing I'll say is that we're working on trainings. And we've worked with Mentor Minnesota. Maddie Kyle is a BestPrep staff member who's also on this call and has done so much of this work. And she has worked on a cultural humility training that we have all of our mentors go through. We also have training just for our mentors to understand the program, but then also who these students are. And I think that's really important because we don't want mentors to come in with their own biases or opinions on who the students are. We want to be clear about the population we're serving. Okay, I will let us go to.
No, it's great. Thank you, Janae and Maddie. I'm so happy you're here too. We love BestPrep. You know, just like Brooklyn Bridge, I think both of you organizations, how fortunate we feel to have both of you in the house today, you know, setting that bar even higher, from everything from recruitment to really just your mission and vision. It's incredible. And yeah, like I said, we're just really happy that you're here with us today. I know that there was a specific question for you, Janae, too. So before, I don't want to, there's a few questions in there, but someone asked or was wondering if you could give an example of an engaging question that you might ask when you were inviting your staff to do the elevator pitch. But if you had some good examples, I know you have a very creative mind, so.
Yeah, I think it all depends for me on what program I'm pitching, but I do say something like, when you were in high school, did you know what you were going to do? Or it could be even something like, are you interested in connecting with a student? Or it could be, I even kind of like to think like, are you in the job you thought you were going to be when you were younger? I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities there, but I like to keep them really kind of a little bit more generic and open-ended so that a person has the ability to answer it however they want. But I'd be happy to have conversations about what might work for you, Becky, if you want to.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the storytelling piece is big. And I think if you are willing to share a little bit about yourself too, when thinking of those questions, often that opens up a whole nother door and windows and everything, you know, with opportunity to build connection and sort of this relatability. You know, if you're willing to share a little bit, and then sometimes too, then you can think of some other engaging questions, or but having a little bit of that storytelling piece, I think is powerful too, or can be.
And I want to add kind of similar to that. I think inviting people to open up is really powerful, and something I've had success with is asking some variation on the question of who believed in you, who had an impact on you, because I think when people reflect, and we've all been impacted by other people, you're likely to experience a fondness, and I think it opens you to being willing to maybe do that for another person, or to see yourself as doing that for another person currently. And so those are kind of two powerful ways to do it. Who believed in you? It always inspires good conversation at the very least.
No, I love that. And that is, I think it's super, super powerful too. I know that there was another question too, just about maybe more directed towards Julie, but someone was wondering about what the one-to-one, like bring a friend recruitment strategy, you know, a little bit more about that, like what that looks like, or maybe if there's, you know, how it's, you know, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So for our previous model, we would have the meetings not at a school-based site. We would have them at either city hall. And, you know, for young people, if we're meeting someone at like the what's that event that happens? What's the event that happens? National Night Out, which we didn't recruit from this year. Obviously, there were very few of them, but like for that, or for the back to school nights, after we meet young people there, we get their information, then we reach back out to them. The friend group that they initially came up with might not all respond to us. And so we'll say like, hey, whoever it was that you came with, bring them too. Or if you have another friend that wasn't with you, bring them. And then they can also come to our onboarding. And then that way, and we'll let them bring them after we've already done our interviews with the BYCs. Because if we have someone that's interested, we do an interview, which is really just a getting to know you both directions kind of thing, because they're already hired. If they're interested in us, you're hired. And so we can we'll bypass that and just like bring them to the first session, just bring them on Monday when we have our meeting. And then they can see if they like it or not. And then afterwards, we can follow up with that young person. And it's just helpful because some people are shy. You're stepping into an environment where maybe there could be other people from your school there, but they're not in your friend group, so you don't know them. So bring someone that you're comfortable with so that you're more likely to stay as part of this larger group. And that's that you have a partner in crime as we're encouraging you to get to know everybody and these people in other spaces. So that's why we like that, bring a friend. If we have other activities that are happening, then we encourage people to bring friends and family members, like siblings too, because we love to, again, like we love to recruit within families, cousins, bring everybody. We want you here.
Oh, that's perfect. And I think, there's some comfort for young people, older, like when you have someone there with you, and maybe if you're new to the mentoring experience, whether that's a mentee or mentor, I think, having someone there with you to walk, into those doors can make people feel more comfortable, maybe a little bit more willing to share and feeling not alone. And there again, but I think that by you encouraging them to invite a friend, I think that's brilliant, really. And just those basics, but so important too, so that they can feel like they're not alone in the process. And
the other thing I would say is that in our organization, we are very clear that all of our opportunities for young people are the right fit for all young people. And so we are definitely recruiting from like transition age youth within Hennepin County, youth who are involved with the justice system. My thought process behind this is I'm looking for a certain set of traits, or for young people who want to develop certain traits, but I'm not looking for accomplishments. Because who knows what opportunities, you might not have had opportunities for accomplishments. So like, I'm not worried about that. And school's not for everybody either. So I'm not worried about your accomplishments. I'm interested in traits. And so I like to use behavior staff and their recommendations, because if a young person is willing to like tell an adult about themselves, let's hone that. And let's give you some, I mean, it's like kind of the language of the oppressor, but let's give you some language where like we can sharpen that skill. And now you can do it in a way that feels respectable to the adult, but also gets you what you want and holds them accountable. So like I said, I'm looking for traits or the desire to build some traits, because you also have some really shy young people who want to learn how to use their voice more. Great, come through. But accomplishments are not high on my list. And that's not, I mean, we definitely have young people who have accomplished some pretty major things. And that's great too, but it's really more about the traits for me. I'm sorry for the noise in the background. My son and the puppy are like doing some WWE. I apologize if you can hear them.
Oh no, it's good. I
Okay.
think all those moments make, remind all of us we're human,
Oh my
from
God.
technical glitches to background noise. I think that's okay. I think
yes, quarantine has taught us many things. Patience.
Patience for sure, right?
There was a rooster crowing in the background of a webinar I was on last week, so you're fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I actually don't even hear anything either. So
great.
But no, we appreciate it. And I think Julie, you with your education background or coming from, as a teacher, I think too, I agree. There's some comments in the chat too. I mean, it's just a really inclusive approach that you have. And I think, it's so powerful and appreciated too, that you're kind of recognizing that. And I know there's a commercial or an ad going on right now that you don't have to be amazing to start, but you have to start to be amazing. And I think for young people too, it's that, if you would only go off of their accomplishments, I mean, how many of us as a young person had a lot of accomplishments? Not necessarily, but it's, a true mentor, right? Finding that,
Right.
asking those guiding questions and seeing those inherent talents that those young people or people have.
Mhm.
And then they're like, oh yeah, you know, a lot of times I didn't realize. But
Yeah, I mean, when I think about myself, I was raised in a family of my teachers. And so I had, my parents as teachers knew all the teachers from a very small town. And so I had all kinds of opportunities in front of me because I had because of networking, I had it in to do all these things. And then it was a small town. So I also, and like, it had nothing to really do with me. Like I took advantage of those opportunities, but I did nothing to earn those opportunities. And so I just think it's really important that we remember that as adults too. Like when you're young, opportunities have a lot more to do with who your parents know and how much time and money they have. And if you don't have those things, then you're not able to like build that opportunity set, So like I want to move past those barriers and get to like I said, like the traits and just make sure that everyone is able to do some things that make them know that they like are able to accomplish hard things. It's not school, other hard things.
life, right?
Yeah, life, exactly.
Yeah, and that, not to be afraid of those challenges, but trying to guide them into thinking or having that critical thinking and problem solving skills too. And that it's all going to be okay.
I'd love to bridge off of something that was just kind of mentioned. And first of all, I think explicitly, I'd never really said we're looking for traits over accomplishments. And so I love that language, Julie. And I feel like that's a kind of an ethos we can kind of like really lean into as a field. So I love that. Thank you for that. And I've just been thinking, so sometimes for some programs, hiring or recruiting, I just spilled my coffee all over me. Recruiting young people can be hard, but for some it's recruiting the adults. And I think we often think of them being completely different, but for a lot of mentors, it can be really scary to come to the table and kind of bear yourself to a young person who might be really different from you, even just generationally. And I think we underestimate that. And so, and like they can be shy too. So I think also leaning into traits over accomplishments for mentors, and then you're getting a more diverse group of folks at the table. But in terms of, and Becky, you'd asked about this, but in terms of the bring a friend, that's been incredibly powerful for a lot of mentoring programs in adult recruitment. So when I worked at Boulder, we would host probably once every 2 months a big community event. And for the mentors, it was like, bring your family, bring your friends, like bring everybody. This is a community. That was kind of our mission. But what we actually found from that, and really how it was designed, is you would get the wife suddenly signing up to be a mentor, you would get their best friend, you would get their mom to be a mentor, because that is really powerful. You will come to the table if you know people at the table and if you feel welcome. And then that last component, which Janae mentioned, the elevator pitch is so important because people are going to want to come if they can easily say what you do, or they can easily identify like why you're there. And so really making sure to hone that, because then if you can equip your mentors and your mentees with that language, then they can really easily talk about it and kind of softly recruit too. So a young person would easily be able to say like, yeah, I'm part of, and I forget the name of your program, Becky, the Jewish
Youth Mentoring Program.
Jewish Youth Mentoring Program. That's right. Okay, I knew it was something like that. But so if they're able to say like, I'm part of the Jewish Youth Mentoring Program, and we do mentoring every week at the community center, then somebody else might be like, wow, that sounds really great. How can I get involved? But they easily know what's going on, right? And so the elevator pitch, I think, is an underrated best tool in your toolkit. So I love that you brought that up, Janae.
And that's something that I think we just struggle with as a program because we are housed in a human services agency. And so there's this whole idea of confidentiality. And we really drive that home, especially with the mentors. But I have to push back against that a little bit, saying, no, we want to tell our stories and not just, as stories from the heart for fundraising purposes. Like we need to be telling these stories because they're really impactful and help, get more people connected to it. So that is part of the challenge and, the one-to-one nature, but certainly I see, I had a married couple come to us wanting to mentor together, and they waited, I think, over a year, maybe a couple of years, trying to find a match. Had a group of siblings come along, matched them up, and it's, I think a couple of the most effective and lasting matches we've had recently, because they are able to connect about it and share those experiences, which is impactful for both the couple and the family.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you for sharing that, Becky. Appreciate it. I love to hear the stories of what's going on, out in programs. And again, it's great to feel inspired too and energized a little bit. As I said, I needed more coffee this morning, but who needs more coffee? I should just start every morning with all of you. And then I feel inspired and ready to go and tackle the day a little bit too. So I'm more than happy to stay on. I think Sarah and Allie, we're happy to stay on. I know that folks, BestPrep and Brooklyn Bridge, you guys rock. Appreciate you being here. If you're able to stay on, if anyone other folks had any more questions, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, definitely appreciate your time and being here today, and hope that you'll be able to come to our next event. We are going to be doing a lunch and learn on August 24th. It's from 12 to 1, and I'll share that, and along with the resources and ways to get a hold of BestPrep and Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth, in a follow-up email for everyone. And we'll also share the video from this, that if you want to share it with your team or your network, you're more than happy or more than welcome to do that. But hopefully that you can come to that event August 24th, and it's about screenings. We're going to actually have a screening provider join us along with a couple of other programs, and just kind of walk us through some of the tools and ways to navigate screening when it comes to, if we find these volunteers and people that want to get involved, and then what are some of those next steps too. So with that, thank you all so much.